State Department, and she was offered the opportunity to go into a very sensitive office and spend the day there with people and see what they do. And they work with all the foreign consulates in the Chicagoland area. So again, this is where those internships are so key, because without the clearance, it is hard to get in. So look for the internships, the PMF program. I think the GCRC internship is excellent. And again, the advertising was sent today for it, so it's an excellent one. The GCRC internship too, if it wasn't clear, they're actually housed in the FED office. So you're a GCRC intern, but you actually sit in the Federal Executive Board suite. So you'll see the daily operations of the office.
So Jean, I want to ask you, I want to get the dialogue going a little bit. If there are any questions, now would be the time to ask the three experts that are sitting here with the experience, and to transfer the information they've given you, not just to the federal, but ask them. There are some techniques and some tips that they've given you that are not just for getting jobs with the federal. So, for example, going after the organization, not the job. That's something that would apply not just with the federal government. And so, how many of you are interested in the federal sector? Now, actually, after what Jean just said, everybody should raise their hand. Because you are trying to start a career in the public service. You may start actually in the corporate sector. You may find a job that fits your skills and fits your aspirations. It's not quite in the public sector, but it's on the path. It's on the way. So even if you're not interested specifically in the federal sector, that may be where you start. And then once you get, you know, some experience, then you certainly can go to the nonprofit sector or the state or local sector. So can you talk a little bit about the difference between looking for a job or looking at a job or a title and looking at the organization? What do you look for in that organization?
Yeah, I think that's getting back to what's your personal mission. I think until you get very clear on what your personal mission is and what you want to accomplish, it's hard to find that right job. So I would suggest that anywhere. And as far as working for a nonprofit, I know a lot of people who work for nonprofits who end up coming into the federal government. I do feel like we have the entrepreneurial spirit of nonprofits with a little more job stability, better benefits, and better pay. So if I could, sorry to move back to the federal government, but I just know too many people who work for nonprofits who come to the federal service, because a lot of what we do, I mean, the National Corporation for Public Service, they work with a lot of nonprofits. Our combined federal campaign, which is in Chicago alone, is an over $4 million campaign that generates funds for local charities. There's ways to do charitable work or to be associated with a mission if there's a particular cause that you're interested in through the federal government. There's almost always a way to do it. My favorite is Kim Ainsworth, the director from Boston. You've heard her example. She said, I can find a federal job for anyone, a skill for anyone. And someone said, yeah, what about a barber? And she said, well, barber, now that's a tricky one. Let me get back to you. And sure enough, VA was looking for barbers. They needed people for a training center. So there really is a federal job for everyone. If there's something you're really passionate about, let me know. I'll be here afterwards. We can talk and help you try and find a match. And I have to point again to this Partnership for Public Service, because it is a great place to get, I think, very clear. There's a quiz you can take there to get very clear on what your mission might be. So if you need help clarifying that could help. And I worked for in the private sector before working for the federal government. I worked on Peapod, that grocery site that's so popular now, so you may use that. And I loved innovation, and I loved online shopping. It was a crazy new idea back then. And I feel like that innovation and that creative spirit is in the government, especially now, and with the Federal Executive Board. So if it was innovation that attracted me to the government, and working for the State Department, and the creative problem solving you have to do when you're on a tarmac trying to get something cleared, or trying to figure out where something is. And so whatever that is, tie it to the job that you want to have. So I knew I loved innovation, and that was something that drove me to Peapod, and then eventually to the State Department.
Any questions?
Before I jump in real quick, I forgot to mention earlier how I ended up in the internship with the FEB. I'm in a federal agency right now working in an entry-level position. I started that about 6 or 7 months ago. Prior to that, I was interning in the FEB. I found out about the internship through an email that Dr. Thompson sent out. And I prepared for the internship by doing an interview rehearsal with my mentor in the MPA mentor-mentoree program. So kind of the lesson that I learned from that is that there are tools you have as MPA students that can lead to success, I guess, or the end goal that you want from the program. Because I had never heard of this office, I knew nothing about it. The first time I heard about it was an email that popped up in my UIC inbox from Dr. Thompson. So following through on some of those things can sometimes work out.
So read those emails.
Yes. And if I why Mike was so good in the interviews, you were ready. I'm going to ask, what are our 3 lines of business? I'm going to ask, what's our mission statement? Like, you need to know whatever agency you go to, what do they do? You should have their website memorized. When were they founded? Because man, if you say, well, I know you were founded in 1993 with any company or whatever it is. I know that you're celebrating your 50th anniversary. I know that you were created by the Federal Code of Regulations 5 CFR 960. Wow, that's great stuff. You know, I actually read the Vienna Convention preparing for this interview, and I understand one of your responsibilities in association with the Vienna Convention is this. I understand your profits were down last year and you think it was because of the economic recession, but you don't want to ask, what's an average day like here? You don't want to ask, what do you do here? You need to know that. Your questions need to be very clear and you need to show that you know your stuff when you ask your questions at the end of the interview.
Mike, if you could just talk a little bit about how you got your job. You transitioned from the internship to your current job.
Yeah, well, I had a semester-long internship, so it was from January of last year to the summer. And I knew I wanted to start working my second year of the program, so towards the end of the semester, I think probably around late April, May, I just started looking on USA Jobs for what was going to be open. And there were a couple that popped up that seemed interesting, and it just happened that one of them,
That's all right.
There are a lot of networking opportunities available through this internship, I'll leave it that way. But not just for things that I applied for. I mean, like Gene said, I've had people, you know, it's the government, so it's not like private sector where someone can offer you a job, but I've had people send me emails and say, hey, here's a position that's opening up in our office. And it's like, it wasn't anything through the internship, it was just posted on USA Jobs, but it seemed interesting, it seemed like a good opportunity, and through the internship I met someone who worked in that agency, so I was able to find out a little bit more about it.
If I could just add to that, you had a very clear vision and mission when you came in, but sometimes interns come to us and they say, I don't know what I want to do. I'm not even sure I want to work for the federal government. And that's a really honest answer. I love hearing that. And we can help them zero in on that, on what they want to do in a few months. And you've seen this, we've got someone in our office now who came in and really just didn't have a clue. And man, she has just taken off. Once we got her clear on her mission, and she defined her own mission, and once she knew what it was, we could start helping her. We could say, and she actually doesn't want to work in the federal government. She wants to go back to do something with higher education, working in a grad school program. So we helped her, we're helping her hone in on a speech, and we're helping her identify opportunities to speak at local universities with this speech, but we're helping her hammer down the speech in a very clear way, and we're using executive coaching that we've attended with our executive committee. So we have techniques then that we can share with her so that she can hone in on her speech and get great at that. So even if you're not sure what your mission is, you should consider this internship or something that you just find yourself gravitating to, because and we can help you clarify that mission and then make the opportunities. So with her it was speech writing, with someone else it was, we knew that they were interested in women's issues, so we identified something in the Department of Labor Women's Bureau. And when they had a big event coming up and needed a hand, I said, you know what, I've got an intern who would be great. And she spent a week over there and then ended up applying for a job and subsequently getting that job. If somebody's interested in emergency preparedness or intel, I would bring them with me to those briefings. So if you're in our office at some point, you'll see I take certain interns with me to certain meetings, and we always try and focus it on what they want to eventually do. So as you you, we had you doing FEMA things or those sorts of things. I didn't take you to my women's bureau briefings because I just didn't think it would be a match. So we'll help you help you find your own mission, and then help you make those connections so it can happen. And it's not just our office. I mean, any internship can do that for you. And the clearer your mission is, the more people will be able to help you. The more people around you will be able to help you. And anybody who hires you wants to help you to get to the next step.
I want to go back a little. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I just have a question. This seminar and the last seminar, we focused a lot about networking, which I know is important because it can help you get into where you want to get into, but networking won't necessarily help you succeed at your position. So what kind of skill sets from your experiences do you see is most valuable in, especially federal government agency, or just any kind of federal government agency?
Yeah, it really depends on the agency. Some things I'm seeing a lot now, just project management, GIS. I'm seeing a lot of things with just focus on statistics. So I'm seeing a lot of jobs come up with that. It really depends on the agency.
There are,
Yeah,
if I could kind of just tap into that, there are some agencies, well, there are some jobs, let me put it that way, that will be applicable to almost any agency and their value. And there are usually openings any day on USA Jobs. One of them is IT related stuff. It could be programming, it could be information security is really big right now. Languages for certain agencies are always a big draw, because that's a hard skill to just pull somebody off the street and get. So those are a couple things that would apply across the board if you have one interest versus another.
This is why you should be on USA Jobs or on Monster if you want to work for the private sector now, even if you're not looking for a job yet, because you should be seeing, well, what are the trends, what are they looking for, and then to continue looking for once you're in a job, just so that your skills don't atrophy, because you don't want to be that person that has stopped being useful to the office.
If you have some time and you're just playing around on the internet, go to USA Jobs and put in a job title that you're interested in. Your major is public administration, so you could put in anything like administrative officer, anything like that. I don't know if you have language skills or not. Put one of those, because you can search it that way too, and just see how many jobs pop up. Try contracting officer. That's a huge one right now for any agency. And see how many jobs pop out. See where the jobs are at, because it tells you what the locations are that they need people. So if you're willing to relocate, if you're in a position to relocate, personally, that's another thing to keep in mind too. Some people have a little bit of a leg up on getting into the service point-wise, because there's a point system that some agencies use. Military, if you're serving from a certain time to a certain time, they give you a 5-point preference. If you become disabled because of your service, you get a 10-point preference if it's a certain level. Also, people who have history with the Peace Corps sometimes have an advantage over people who have not. So there are different ways to kind of work yourself into the government if that's what you're worried about.
Or make it broad. Sure, it's 7 through 9 with no job title. Because my job, executive director, was actually listed as a program manager or something.
It didn't have the same title.
Yeah, and I wouldn't have heard about it if somebody didn't forward me the email and someone said, you'd be great at this job. I'll never forget that. And I thought, what a nice email to get. What is that? Program manager. And then here it was, this job, where I get to work with all these cool federal agencies and all these amazing leaders. So if you see something that on the surface looks boring, look down. You know, we talked about doing a little something every day. And you said if you're looking around on the internet, next time you're on Facebook, stop. Stop. And take a minute. You know, if you're doing Farmville or something, if you're connecting with someone you love, that's different. But if you're doing something down here, stop. Take a minute and rise up and do something meaningful for your future. Take a minute and go to USA Jobs or Monster and look at and do some research. Because, you know, reconnecting with friends from high school is important, but it's not as important as your future. So try and, when you're on the internet, try and stay at the higher brow level. Don't get trapped down below, because you can waste hours there. And the time you spend now, the decisions you guys make in the next 5 years impact the rest of your life. I mean, the careers you choose, the people you choose to marry, the decisions you make in the next 5 years. I'm trying myself I'm trying to do it. It makes such a difference what you do in the next 5 years. So you should be actively pursuing the future you want.